Congressman Hurt. Congressman, great to have you here on the John Fredericks Radio Network. Thanks for being with us, sir.
Thank you, John. So much. So glad to be with you this morning.
You know, people say, oh, you guys get a couple weeks off. Now, when do you go back in session? What's the date?
We're going to go back next week after Labor Day.
So you go back next week, and then you got a lot of people
Right.
saying, oh, you guys get all this time off. But actually, you're in the district working. Understand from your staff that I want to just start with this, that you had this super humongous Main Street tour in your district where you talked to thousands of people. Can you share the details of that and what some of the feedback is?
Absolutely. And, I'm not one who believes that if I had my way, we wouldn't take August the way it's done. But because it is part of the calendar, we strive very hard to use that time constructively. And frankly, we've had a great month traveling across the district, 10,000 square miles, 23 counties and cities, 39 separate towns. It's a giant district in Southside Central Virginia, and largely rural in nature, but scattered with small towns. And as we travel through the district, we talk to so many people who have such great concerns about our country. And from my perspective, I can't do my job unless I hear from the people I represent. So it was a great opportunity to talk with a lot of good people along the way. The number one issue, though, I think, if I had to pick one, would be jobs and the economy. If you travel to these small towns, you see, small businesses that are struggling. A lot of these small towns are county seats for larger agricultural counties, and they've hit hard. They've seen hard times over the last few years, and what we heard again and again was that Washington is out of touch, and Washington so often, and sometimes well-intended, Washington so often hands down mandates, red tape, costly regulations that don't have any real benefit. And those things pile up on small businesses disproportionately, whether it be the president's health care law, which is killing Virginia families and hurting small businesses in terms of their ability to provide benefits for their employees, or whether it's access to capital, which is a huge issue, and the regulations that have flowed from Dodd-Frank have made it more difficult for community banks and credit unions to extend credit in many instances, and what the consumer's left with is higher costs and fewer choices, and that's bad for the economy. So those are a couple of examples of the things that we heard about as we traveled across the district. The other thing that was notable certainly was tremendous concern about the Iran nuclear deal.
Why don't we get to that, the Iran nuclear deal? And again, Congressman Hurt, we appreciate you going out and talking to people. I mean, that's how we learn. That's how, we get feedback to find out what real people are saying beyond those that text us or call into the show or email. Let's get to the Iranian deal. That vote, we understand, is going to be coming up probably in September, right?
That's correct.
Where are we on this? Do you think there's any chance that Obama's veto can get overridden?
Well, as your listeners know, I'm sure. Of course, there will be a resolution of disapproval that will be presented, and I think that there are sufficient votes in the House, and I think there's a good chance that there's a veto-proof majority, which would require more than 2/3 in the House to override the president's veto, which he has pledged to do if we adopt this resolution of disapproval. The Senate, however, is much closer, and I think I read yesterday that they are getting closer to having enough committed votes in the Senate to sustain the president's veto. Of course, in the Senate, you have to have 67 votes to override the veto, and I think all the Republicans are on board, and there's some notable Democrats. Menendez is one, Schumer is one, but I'm not sure that they're going to garner those votes. So I think for your listeners, I think if they feel strongly about it, I think it's really important for them to reach out to our senators to express their concerns. I know that as a member of the House of Representatives, we certainly appreciate the input and knowing where our citizens stand and our constituents stand, and I would encourage folks that are concerned about this certainly to either way, on either side of the equation, but because this thing seems like it's steamrolling towards approval, I think that it's important to reach out and make your opinions known to your representatives.
Well, if you don't like the Iranian deal, the only chance you've got in Virginia is to call Mark Warner's office, Senator Warner. He is on the fence. He has told me that he has not made up his mind, and when he says that, I believe him. Senator Tim Kaine, on the other hand, has already come out in favor of the Iranian deal, so I don't think you're going to change his mind. So if you do want to get involved, pick up the phone, call Senator Mark Warner's office, respectfully as always, and encourage him to vote no on the Iranian deal. And I think right now he is one of those senators that is purely undecided, and hopefully with your influence and cajoling, he'll make a good decision on that. Big difference now in the ISIS fight. Finally, our NATO ally, Turkey, who's got the biggest army in NATO outside of the United States, getting involved in fighting ISIS as they get closer in to Turkey from Syria. Is that a game changer?
Not clear whether that will be a game changer. I think it's certainly positive news that there are those who are willing to step up, who have been reticent heretofore. There's no question that resolving these issues is going to take a partnership. I think that I am one who has been concerned about the fact that because America has and this president's policy has been to step back and not be a leader and actively work to put together and lead a coalition to defeat ISIS in the strongest way possible. It has left sort of a fractured field, but it's nice to see that some of the players are picking up and willing to do what's necessary to defeat ISIS. It remains to be seen whether it will be enough. I think that we would be in a much better position if the United States was taking a more active lead, because I don't think that I don't think that peace for us as a nation will last very long if and when the Middle East completely collapses and in this sort of with this sort of disruption.
Congressman Hurt, let's get to the domestic front. A new budget impasse coming up. Are we looking at another omnibus, deficit ceiling, raising, monstrosity, or are you guys going to be in a position to rein in spending there?
Well, I hope so. I was encouraged that earlier this year, for the first time in many years, the House and Senate actually came together. For the 4 years prior, since I was elected, the House always proposed a budget, but never went anywhere because the Senate refused to do its work, with the exception of one Congress. But ultimately, the budget was not agreed to. A budget was not agreed to. But in this case, we finally came together and offered up a budget that does cut spending and does put us on a sustainable path towards a balanced budget. Mm-hmm. So I'm hopeful that by September 30th that we will be able to come up with a plan, a spending plan that we can send to the president that will be will be a new direction, something that we haven't seen, where and it won't be one of these stopgap, continuing resolution type things. It'll be a real spending package that will have real reforms, real spending cuts, and also, frankly, deal with the sequester in an intelligent way. And I know that a lot of your listeners in the Hampton Roads area are very concerned about the sequester and sort of the stupid way that those cuts have been made. We need to fix that, and I know that Tom Price, the chairman of the Budget Committee, is working with all of our all of the committee chairmen to try to come up with a way to replace that with cuts, but making them in a sensible way.
Well, I tell you what, you couldn't be working with a better guy than Tom Price. The good doctor was not only my doctor when I was in Georgia and my older sons, but he was my congressman for some time. Great guy.
I agree. He's a workhorse. He's somebody who doesn't care about getting praise and credit, and doesn't care about the limelight. He just puts his head down, and he has worked very hard to put our country on a sound financial footing going forward.
Well, hopefully that'll work out. Oil export embargo, which has been on there since the oil crisis in the 70s. Legislation is going to be coming to you for that. Have you made a decision on it, and why?
I'm inclined to support lifting the ban because I believe very much that when you have government-imposed mandates and frankly, market manipulation, what you end up doing is hurting consumers, and frankly, it's also it hurts. Our country is built on freedom, economic freedom, and those decisions need to be able to be made by producers and consumers. And when producers of goods and services are able to freely make decisions without government interference, consumers ultimately make their choices, and the economy benefits. I had the opportunity to go with Congressman Ridgel down to the Gulf of Mexico a couple of years ago to look at some of the deep water oil production and gas production facilities out there, and it is so remarkable, breathtaking, and exciting to see the innovation that has taken place in that space, and the American consumer has benefited mightily from that. And so, I think anything that we can do to support that investment, that investment and that innovation in investment is not going to be encouraged and fostered again by more government mandates and more market manipulation. I think what we need is to have more. We need to encourage more of that, and I think lifting this ban opens up opportunities in markets that ultimately benefit consumers and favor innovation and investment, and those are all very good things for jobs and for consumers.
Absolutely, I think it's time that when that was sanctioned, it was a very different time under very different circumstances. So I'm with you on that. I think the embargo on crude oil exports needs to go. It's a relic. Let's get to immigration. GOP frontrunner Donald Trump, who, by the way, I predicted in May would be the Republican nominee. I think I'm going to be right. Has proposed the end of anchor babies, doing away with the birthright provision specifically for two illegal aliens in the United States. So if two people are in the country illegally, obviously, if there's one that's legal, that doesn't matter. But if two people are illegal, they have a child born in the United States, that they wouldn't have automatic citizenship. Is that workable? How do you stand on that?
Well, I think that looking at the policy going forward is something that we need to look at, because clearly the rules and the current law is being abused. I think I'm not. I do think, though, when you look at what is our Constitution says about this issue, I think that to me, it is clear that a child that is born in this country is a U.S. citizen. Now, if we want to consider changing that going down in the future or make modifications to that, I think it's something that we can do, but I don't think that you can change that provision. As it relates to, as the policy relates to allowing folks who have themselves chosen to come here illegally, it is what it is. The law is clear that people who come here illegally, violate our laws, and remain here illegally, are not here legally. And I understand that there are practical constraints in terms of, or practical concerns in terms of how you address the problem and of those people that are here. But let's make no mistake, they are here illegally, and they need to be treated as such, and we need to see those people that are here illegally, be treated as such, and I think that again, that's a difficult challenge. But I think that the thing that is easiest for us to focus on, something that I would think that Republicans and Democrats ought to be able to agree on, is we need to secure the border. End of story. And that is such a giant challenge. It shouldn't be, but it is politically as well as I think practically speaking. We need to do that. And one of the things that Donald Trump has done has made this a conversation that we are talking about. And I think it's extremely important. It is something that I hear about as I travel across the district, and it's something that's long overdue. It's about protecting our borders and protecting our sovereignty. It's about stopping the budget busting that goes along with this illegal immigration that floods, especially the southern borders. It busts criminal justice budgets, school budgets, healthcare budgets. All of those things are consequences of this, and it needs to stop.
Okay, that is going to be the final word. We want to thank Congressman Robert Hurt for being with us, Republican 5th District. Want more info, you can go to hurt.gov, right?
House.gov.
That's right, hurt.house.gov, hurt.house.gov. And what you want to do is you want to sign up for his newsletter, which I get, comes out every week, and it's really good. There's a lot of these newsletters out there, but the two best ones are Griffith and Hurt. You got to get their newsletter. They do a good job.
Thanks, John.
Congressman, thanks for being with us. And